Okay, Tina, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you. I already see some friends sitting out there. Hey, Keith and Katie, good to see you. Thanks so much for this opportunity to check in with you, with our neighbors. I just personally, I want you to know I live about a mile from Idlewild and I can hear your carillon from my house and I absolutely love it. And I think of you often. So it's great to see you. I wish I could be with you in person, but I appreciate the caution and let's all be safe together. I have a few slides that I was going to share with you, and I'm going to go through them and then have plenty of time for the Q&A at the end. Julie, give me, if you don't mind, give me an idea of what time we need to be wrapping this up so that I can pace myself accordingly.
Sure. So technically Sunday school ends around 10:40.
Okay.
Okay. So, you know, if we go a couple minutes over, it's okay. But anyway, wrapping up between 10:30 and 10:40 would be kind of ideal.
Okay, perfect. All right, great. Well, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to keep track of time and then we'll leave. I think that most folks prefer the Q&A, although I have some beautiful images from our communications director. So linger on those and here we go. Let's see. I believe you should be able to see my screen.
Yes.
Great. All right. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to walk you through a zone by zone update on all of the planning efforts underway in Overton Park, including a little bit of some of our partners. And then I'm going to tell you what's coming up. We're not doing a whole lot in this summer. Well, we're doing a couple of things and then some things coming up in the fall. And then of course, how you can get involved with the Conservancy's work. So we embarked on a master plan. We call it a comprehensive plan for the entire park. Gosh, I think 2015. We have paused it a couple of times. We paused it the first time because we were in crisis management mode, trying to resolve some parking issues for several years. And then once that eased up a little bit, we started working on this plan again. And then came the announcement that Memphis College of Art was closing and the Brooks Museum would be moving downtown. So we paused again to let that process catch up so that we would know who we would be planning with. And then we resumed this effort again. Our planning team and the Conservancy, our planning team is Design Workshop. They have offices all over the country. The principal who proposed working with us literally wrote a book on George Kessler, the original designer of Overton Park in 1901. And his philosophy was similar to ours in that Kurt Culbertson from Design Workshop, his philosophy was similar to ours in that this park is a wonderful gem, a George Kessler designed park, and we need to honor that history and honor this enduring design, but we also needed to modernize it for current uses. So our design team needed to understand how each area of the park had its own unique function and own unique personality. And so we broke the park into zones so that we could look at those different types of functions and then really look at comprehensively bringing everything together, because our goal is to have a seamless visitor experience. When you walk into the park, you don't see the park like this, just like animals don't really acknowledge human geographic boundaries, geopolitical boundaries. So we want, when you come into the park, to have a seamless park experience. So we broke the park into zones. We started planning for zone 1, which was the East Parkway picnic and playground area, which you're probably all familiar with. And then the city maintenance compound, which is in the southeast corner of the park at Poplar and East Parkway. Most of you probably haven't stepped foot on that site. It's been really behind a fence since the 1930s. So is everything okay? Are we good on the tech? Okay. So this 13-acre parcel in the southeast corner of the park, the city is moving their maintenance functions out of it, and the mayor gave us the thumbs up to go ahead and start planning for it. So we spent quite a bit of time, excuse me, developing concepts for this. Part of our program was to generate revenue for the Conservancy with some more commercial activities that would not be appropriate in other areas of the park. In our surveys with park visitors, it was a very clear message that folks didn't want us to over commercialize Overton Park, but we also had the problem to solve of needing revenue to continue operating. We have to raise 85% of our budget, and so some earned revenue was a potential in this reclaimed area. We never, we got this far with the planning effort, and then we basically balled this up into a wad and threw it out the window because we were taking advantage of a new opportunity that was arising. So as I mentioned earlier, we've been working on this parking issue in Overton Park for really almost since the Conservancy's inception. The outgoing president of the zoo, Jim Dean, came to me with a new idea for how we might solve the zoo's parking problem without carving up green space in the middle of the park. So his proposal, his proposal was to take the zoo's existing maintenance functions and move them over to this city maintenance compound, which was really just swapping one maintenance area for another. So that was the area that we had already been planning for. So we had a long talk about it, and what we came up with was this agreement that there was a lot of opportunity in this proposal. The first was that the compound itself, which this is what it looks like, the zoo would take the northern half of it, and the Conservancy would begin programming the southern half of it instead of programming the entire Zone 1. It would be more like Zone 1 with a zoo maintenance compound in the middle. So it's a little bit of a difficult design proposition, but we know that we need additional parking in the park. This could create a new parking area, but also a new trailhead into the forest from this site. So it really opened up the forest connections and create essentially a new runner's trailhead. Those greenhouses would continue to function. We may partner with the city to try to bring new programming into that area. And then now the rest is sort of a question mark for us to solve through the planning process. The other piece of this negotiation with the zoo is kind of to sweeten the deal that we were balling up our program for that site and throwing it out the window. To sweeten the deal, Jim Dean suggested that the zoo could take the fence down and give back to the public the 17 acres of growth forest, old growth forest that had been part of their proposed expansion area. This is a huge win for Memphians who love the old forest. We have the only urban old growth forest in the Southeast United States. There are only 3 in the country. This is our most unique gem, and it is really the centerpiece of our planning effort, the centerpiece of Overton Park Conservancy's conservation efforts. So to be able to reclaim the last stand of old growth forest behind the fence and to incorporate it into the Conservancy's managed area was just a deal that was too good to refuse. We'll also be taking the land that's immediately behind Rainbow Lake, just east of the lake, and turning that into part of our programmed area as well. It's currently the kangaroo exhibit through the fall, so go see the kangaroos if you want to see what that land looks like. It's already been disturbed, it's paved, it's exhibit space, so it won't be the same as the old growth forest area that we're reclaiming, but it presents some new opportunities to sort of bridge the gap between the Rainbow Lake and the playground there and the old forest. So I almost consider it an opportunity for a soft introduction into the forest. One of the things that we learned early on is that a lot of people are intimidated to go into the forest. People are scared of snakes. They are, concerned about wildlife, and mosquitoes, and things that lurk. And our goal is always to bring people in, to get people curious about the forest so they'll explore it. We know if they explore it, they're going to fall in love with it. And we know if they fall in love with it, they're going to help us conserve it in perpetuity. So that's my insidious plan. So just an idea, if you haven't been into the forest lately, we'll talk about the forest specifically when we get to Zone 3, but for now, some beautiful May apple shots. The other piece of this negotiation was that we would no longer need to carve out any of the greensward for parking. So the greensward will be restored. We'll replace the compacted soil. We'll probably put a perimeter path around the greensward to really activate all corners of it and create some new programming ideas. So zone 2, moving on. If you've been following the news, you know we've been partnering with the city of Memphis to renovate the Overton Park Golf Course. That renovation is mostly complete. There are still some areas that they'll be refining, and you know, apparently when you build a golf course, you find over time new drainage issues that you just keep having to refine until you get to the final renovation status. So they'll be working on that for probably a couple of years. Got some new team members added to the golf course staff, and a lot of fast progress. Grass is really growing in this hot weather. The golf course is apparently one of the oldest municipally operated golf courses in the country. It was opened in 1907, I believe, and it will still continue being a City of Memphis municipally operated golf course, but we'll be operating in partnership with the Conservancy. So the city and the Conservancy are sort of co-leading this effort. The Junior Open tournament just wrapped up last week. My husband played in the Junior Open tournament, and his dad played in the Junior Open tournament. I suspect that most of you know somebody who grew up playing Overton Park's golf course. So this is an exciting development, and it was really kind of the first project out of the gate in our master planning effort. The project also includes renovating the historic Abe Goodman Golf Clubhouse. This is a 1926 clinker brick Tudor style structure. It's maybe 2/3 of the way complete through the renovation. There was a lot of structural repair needed, so it ended up being a longer project than we expected. We expect it to be open back to the public in October. A lot of folks don't know that this clubhouse is always open to the public. You don't have to be a golfer to enjoy it. So when we reopen, we'll talk a lot about that. You'll be able to come in and get a snack, a cold beer or coffee in the morning. We're expanding the patio a little bit, creating a little deck down at ground level. So it's going to be a great place. It'll be rentable for your events. The interior will be more open, really highlighting the beautiful fireplace. It's a working fireplace, and we'll open up all of the doors. So you'll be able to enter the clubhouse from 3 different directions. So look forward to that. Zone 3, the Old Forest State Natural Area and the only urban old growth forest in the Southeast United States. If you learn nothing from this presentation, I want you to walk away with that phrase in your mind, that Overton Park has the only urban old growth forest in the Southeast United States. I chose this image to introduce Zone 3 because it's so hot right now. And what the forest represents to me, to the Conservancy staff and board, and pretty much anybody who uses Overton Park, it's a respite from whatever is going on in the world. When you walk into the forest today, you'll notice it's 10 degrees cooler than the surrounding area because this old canopy has shaded the ground and kept it from heating up in the summer sun. We focus on conservation. Obviously, we have our operations director is a forester. He's actually getting his PhD in forestry right now. So we're doing a lot of research in the forest to try to understand the ecology of it, make sure that we're addressing any threats like invasive species that may inhibit its future growth, and ultimately to come up with a science-informed long-term management plan that ensures that this forest is protected in perpetuity. So you'll see some researchers out there. Sometimes if you walk out and you'll see maybe a contraption, we've had contraptions that catch acorns so that we can, examine what's happening with acorns. We've had contraptions that capture small animals so that the animals can be examined. We've done that in partnership with the zoo. We've had researchers studying the copperhead population in the park to see how biologically significant this is, this copperhead population is. They're very mellow snakes, by the way, so don't be alarmed. So we have an urban fellowship urban forestry fellowship program that Eric, our operations director, runs in partnership with the local universities. So you'll often see, I don't know, 3, 4, I think this summer we have maybe 5 urban forestry fellows and interns just spending their mornings in the summer tromping around, counting acorns, observing wildlife, examining the heights and circumference of trees, all of this kind of data that we need to create our long-term management plan. This summer, we actually even have, I think, 1 or 2 high school students joining in the fun. So this research is going to, it'll be ongoing. As long as the Conservancy is involved with the management of the park, we are going to be researching the forest. It's such a research opportunity. And the work that we're doing here informs urban forestry research nationally. There's not a lot of deep urban forestry research happening across the country. So what we're doing is contributing to a larger body of knowledge to help other municipalities manage their urban forests. Another avenue of our focus on the Old Forest, we have not launched robust education programming yet. Wolf River Conservancy is far advanced in that respect, and we definitely enjoy learning from them. We will eventually begin ramping up Old Forest education, and we will also launch programming that I am planning to really focus around ecotherapy, the idea of the forest as a respite, as a place to become physically healthy, to, all of your recreation and exercise needs. But what we're also finding is that as we've done outreach through our planning process, even talking to teenagers, people are looking for a natural space where they can kind of get their head right. And that is an avenue that we haven't really ever considered until recently as a programming approach. So stay tuned on that note, and we're gonna launch some of that later this year. Okay, so moving on, Zone 4 encompasses all of the public areas that the Conservancy manages on the east side of the park. So Rainbow Lake Playground, Overton Park, Formal Gardens, connections and transitions. This is not limited to Zone 4. Transitions refers to the spaces between our partners' managed areas. So if you're walking into the park, let's just say from the Poplar, Tucker, Maury Moss intersection, there's a stoplight there. If you're walking in there, you're gonna walk adjacent to the golf course, Brooks Museum, and the Overton Park Shell before you get to the Formal Gardens, which we manage. And then if you continue, you'll move into the zoo's space. The transition between those zones should be seamless and beautiful. And so we'll focus on that, on whether or not there are areas that need to be improved in those transition zones. And then connections. The park was built in designed in 1901. A lot of the sidewalks were added in the 1930s. They were Works Progress Administration projects, and there haven't been a whole lot of improvements on that accessibility since then. So we know that we need better connections for cyclists, pedestrians, and people in wheelchairs. And so that in itself is going to be a whole focus, a whole layer of the Overton Park plan. But especially in Zone 4, where there's a lot of car pedestrian conflict, we'll be focusing heavily on that. Specifically around Rainbow Lake, when we've polled people, you've told us that you love this lake. You've also called in to tell me that you don't love, the condition that it's in frequently. This is not a real lake. It is a concrete-lined, man-made pond. So our vision for Rainbow Lake is to naturalize it, to help it come into a more functioning, healthy ecosystem, make it more habitat friendly for the wildlife that use it, and really turn it into an education opportunity. As I mentioned before, we're going to take down the fence behind the lake and really bring it into the forest a little more closely. The Rainbow Lake Playground, we had a playground safety audit done a few years ago, and the auditor estimated that we had about 100,000 kids coming through the playground every year. Well, last year we installed counters at the gate, eco counters that, you know, basically ding every time somebody walks past it. We're on track to count 250,000 visitors to Rainbow Lake Playground. It is being loved to death. It is about 8 years old now and due for a pretty major renovation. So part of our planning effort will be how to address the playground. We will also create a new playground in the East Parkway picnic area because that playground is very old. It's held up well, but it's old. And in my mind, we shouldn't consider that we have 2 playgrounds in Overton Park. We should consider that there is a play trail that links 2 distinct play areas, concentrated play areas. But as I said earlier, our goal is to get people into the forest, to get them to explore it, fall in love with it, and help us conserve it. And so you'll see that thread coming all the way through to our playground design. Zone 5 really encompasses all of the real estate that our partners are managing. With the zoo, you'll see some expanded collaborative programming with the Conservancy over time. We've begun discussing it. We've kind of dipped our toe into it, but we haven't really jumped into it. As you know, the zoo just announced that Matt Thompson is going to be is now, I guess, the president and CEO. We've worked with Matt for years. Our team loves his team. We are very excited about the future collaborations that are about to just explode between our organizations. And the same with the Overton Park Shell. We're really just beginning the conversation around how we might work more closely together with all of our partners. The Conservancy kind of serves as a convener. We try to bring our partners together regularly to look at operations needs, efficiencies, security issues, and make sure that we're all communicating well. We keep an internal calendar with all of our partners so that we're avoiding any conflicts, so that I don't plan a festival on a day that Zoom Through the Zoo is happening, for example. So specifically, we get a lot of questions about what's happening in Rust Hall after the College of Art closed. The city ran a selection process and the Metal Museum was selected as the next tenant. If you're not familiar with the National Ornamental Metal Museum, go pay them a visit because their facility on the riverfront is just beautiful. They're not moving out of that facility, they're expanding. So they've signed a lease with the city to take over Rust Hall, former College of Art, and renovate it. And this will be the space, the new Metal Museum space for their galleries, their programming, and their administrative functions. Their existing facility on the riverfront will be housing their artist in residence program and will still be available for your private events, your weddings and other parties. So we're so excited to have them join us as partners in the park. We've already added Carissa Husong, their president, to our board, and we're planning collaboratively. So looking forward to seeing what kind of exciting programming, and very grateful that they are going to be renovating and stewarding this beautiful, iconic building. The timeline for that, they are in their architecture and engineering phase and their fundraising phase, and I believe they'll start construction renovation as soon as their fundraising is complete. So consider that a not so subtle hint to go support the Metal Museum. The Brooks Museum is on track to move to their new facility downtown. I believe the current timeline is 2026. So they are still very much in Overton Park right now. They're doing wonderful exhibits and programming, and that will continue even when they move into their new facility. Their current president and I have had conversations about how the Brooks Museum might continue to maintain an arts legacy in Overton Park because it's so much part of their story. And we envision that there will continue to be collaborative programming with the Brooks Museum. The space itself that they'll be vacating is still kind of up in the air. The city has not yet made a decision about who would be the next tenant. I know that there was a selection process early on, so we have some idea of who was interested, but the timeline was so long that it made sense to pause that and kind of spend some more time with it. So hopefully you'll hear news about that in the coming months. So that's the master planning effort, and we are expecting to have some concepts to release to the public and to start getting feedback on specific concepts and improvements within the next month or two. The design team expects to present to our board in August, and after that, we're going to go back out to the public. We're going to show you how we incorporated a lot of your answers to our surveys, a lot of your feedback into this comprehensive plan. It'll be a very draft conceptual plan, and then we're going to get your feedback. So we'll take that show on the road later this year. And if you are interested in hosting a conversation about the comprehensive plan, then please reach out to me. I'd love to speak to you, Idlewild, or any of the groups that you are a part of. But in the meantime, we're still having lots of fun in the park. It was so dreadfully hot this year that we just kind of popped up a series of water slide events called our Summer Splash series. We did one earlier this month, and the next one's coming around on August 6th. This is just a really low key, come get your mem pops and bring your kids to the water slide, or just come listen to Happy Shrieks. In mid-October, if you've been following if you're on our email newsletter list, you get emails to your inbox a couple of times a month. Occasionally you get a gem called Nature Zen. This was the brainchild of our communications director, Melissa McMasters, who is also our photographer. So any of this beautiful photography that you see related to Overton Park is usually attributed to Melissa. When the pandemic hit, and we were all kind of shuttered inside, and we weren't sure if it was safe to visit the park. In fact, the county health department, they were telling us not to gather in groups, even outdoors. For 6 weeks, the roads to Overton Park were closed because the park was still so popular that there was concern that people were gathering in groups and contributing to the spread of COVID. So in the middle of all of that, Melissa, our communications director, launched what she titled Nature Zen, and it was just to take a piece of the park and deliver it to you via your email inbox. And it was wildly popular. We got more engagement and feedback on this Nature Zen series than anything we had ever done. So we've made it a permanent endeavor, and so sign up for our email newsletters if you haven't already done that. This year, we're really going to highlight it in the fall, which is just an absolutely beautiful time to be in the park and in the forest. And we're going to do an entire week to celebrate Nature Zen. We can't announce it officially, but we have a wonderful author coming in the middle of that week to give us talk on a book that she wrote that has a lot of meaning for me personally and for anybody who's using the forest. We're going to have children's programming, programs for adults, things that you can do virtually or in person. So stay tuned and look for an announcement about Nature Zen Week. So I know you're just dying to ask how you can get involved. As I said, if you're not getting our email newsletters, please do that. You can sign up on our website, overtonpark.org. You can also find a calendar of events, not just the Conservancy's events, but events from the zoo, the museum, the Brooks Museum, golf course. I don't think we have anything on there for the Metal Museum yet, but we probably will, because I think they're going to start doing some programming in advance of their renovation. And of course, the Overton Park Shell concert dates are on our calendar, but they're also on the Shell's calendar. We began collecting stories from park visitors in 2012 formally, because so many people, when they found out that the Conservancy was now managing the park, would come up to me and say, oh, my mother took photos of us when we were kids in front of the Doughboy statue and sent them off to my father when he was overseas in the Army, and I have those photos. And we were scanning photos, we were interviewing folks, and then we encouraged people to share their stories with us. We created an online form for that. We're also partnering with WYXR to begin doing audio recordings of some of those stories. So you can read them on our website, and then you can also share your own, and we can push them out if you're willing to share. You can also obviously find a way to contribute to the Conservancy's effort on our website. As I said, we raise 85% of our operating budget, which is about $1 million per year. So that's a heavy lift. We have a really small team. We try to be efficient and steward those funds, but a lot of our funds just go right back out into management of the park. But I guess the most important thing that you can do is to visit the park, be counted by our visitor counters. That's making a case for growing our support from other means. It's what makes the park feel safe and healthy and vibrant, is the sheer number of people who are coming in to enjoy it in so many different ways. So that is it. I feel like I was talking really fast, so I probably left a whole lot of time for questions. So please, let's hear them.
I don't know how close I have to be to the screen for you to hear me. If you have trouble hearing anyone else, I'll just repeat the question. But I have one right out of the box. So I am a huge, huge fan of the old growth forest. My kids and I love spending time in there. We're birders, and so it's a beautiful place right in the city, 10 minutes from home, to see some great birds, particularly during migration. That's my plug for birding, you guys. But my question, I was so intrigued when you talked about the renovation of the Rainbow Lake Playground and how you're going to try to incorporate some design aspects of that kind of mirror or call to the old growth forest into that. Could you talk a little bit about just what that would even be? What design aspects would do that?
Sure. So when we designed a Rainbow Lake Playground originally, we did a survey of parents and kids, and what we heard was that people were more interested in a more naturalized play area. They wanted to move away from the bright primary colors and the rubberized surfaces and metal. So the Rainbow Lake Playground that you see today it reflects sort of a natural design aesthetic. We used a lot of wood. We used concrete in a way that mimicked things that you might find in the forest, like a hollowed out log laying on its side that you could crawl through, or a hollowed out log that's standing upright that you could climb on. We used the engineered wood fiber safety surface instead of the rubberized surface, and that was just to give a more natural feel to the playground. Where we're probably going to grow after that initial playground design, where we're probably going to grow is to make the play area even less concentrated as a play area. So with the land that we're recapturing behind Rainbow Lake, if you think of it as a transition between the lake and the forest, what we want is more of an exploratory trail. With as you travel through the trail, you've got things to climb on or things to stop and look at that might frame your focus of the forest and give you maybe a little bit of information. So it's almost like a combination of an interpretive trail with a play area. And the play area might be so subtle that you wouldn't define it as a playground. It would be something that kids are naturally going to climb on. Because I mean, if you put something more than 3 feet high or 2 feet high on the ground, a kid's going to climb on it. I mean, and you just go up from there. So I know that sounds really vague, and it's because we haven't really delved into the design details yet. But the overarching design theme is going to be what can we build that mimics natural structures that kids are going to play on in the forest, but create them in an accessible and safe environment with a little bit of interpretive element to it, because we don't want to necessarily clutter up the actual natural area with a lot of interpretive signage. So think of it as forest light. Does that answer your question?
It does. It sounds to me like it's going to be a blending. So it's bringing the forest into the playground and bringing the playground into the forest. That sounds really, really cool. Yeah, another question.
Could you speak to the safety aspect of policing, and is there any plan for like a ranger or that kind of thing?
Were you able to hear that question, or should I repeat?
No, I heard the word ranger, but that's it.
Okay, there's a question about safety and policing and whether part of the plan might be to have a ranger present for guidance and for safety.
Yes. So first of all, we get this question a lot. The data will tell you that the park is actually safer than all of the areas around it. If you look at the Crime Watch data, there are fewer incidents in Overton Park than anywhere around it. It's one of the safest places in Memphis, I would claim. So we focus more on the perception of safety is really what a lot of people are talking about when they talk about safety. So we have piloted a ranger program this past year. The ranger's role is more education. We invite people to learn about why it's good to keep your dog on a leash. For example, the Conservancy doesn't have enforcement authority, so we're not authorized to, go up and police human behavior. But what we can do is educate and invite people to comply with social norms, I guess, is the soft way to say it. The program was pretty popular. We're partnering with Reimagining the Civic Commons, and they are providing a lot of technical support for this effort and funding. So they've allowed us to bring on a contracted ranger and kind of develop a handbook and develop a script for interpretation of park elements and all of those conversations around compliance. So we're kind of in between right now. We hired the first one and he was great. Everybody loved him, but then he had to leave for family issues. And we hired a second one and who also wasn't able to stick around. So we're about to launch. We're about to combine the ranger program into another role and kind of broaden it a little bit. So we'll launch that in the coming weeks. Katie.
How are you going to go about naturalizing Rainbow Lake? Are you going to put in natural plants and more? Because we like to see the turtles when they come out.
Yeah.
Be interesting to hear about that.
Good. Yes, I did hear that question. And so the lake is currently concrete lined. It's about 4 feet deep. What we envision, and it's got a concrete path around it. So what we envision is remove a lot of that concrete, figure out how to have a natural surface, how to have plantings at the edges that help filter some of the water that goes in, and have all of the elements that you would have in a natural body of water that typically keep the water clean. So as you know, Keith could probably explain how that works better than I can, but certain plantings are going to help filter the water and attract certain wildlife that's going to also create this balance to the ecosystem that we don't currently have. The turtles do love it there, and I'm sure that they're going to be there long term. They need to be part of a more highly functioning ecosystem. So a lot of native plants that you might find around the edge of a body of water like this will still have access though. So what we don't want to do is plant it up around it and then tell people, you can't interact with the forest or with the lake edge. So we've got some areas where you might be able to cross over the lake and see what's in it without actually getting into the water. We would probably play around with shade. An open body of water just baking in the sun isn't really conducive for habitat. So those are all going to be a lot of fun explorations once we delve into the details of that, which we haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah, what is in our watershed?
There's a conversation about what watershed that body of water would be in, or maybe is in the Wolf River watershed. He has a question.
You mentioned eco counters, and I presume prior to COVID, or since COVID, I'm sure you saw an increase. Has that increase sustained in activity in the park?
Good question. So my one regret as executive director is that we didn't install visitor counters on day one in 2012. So I don't really have good baseline data. We had estimated just doing random clicks, and sort of calibrating our perceptions with some spot checks of actual numbers. And we were estimating about 800,000 visitors to the public areas of the park each year. We installed visitor counters in January of 2020. I mean, I wish I'd just done it in 2019 and I would have a COVID baseline, pre-COVID baseline. But in January 20, so the year of COVID, when the roads were closed for 6 weeks, people were being discouraged from gathering. All of our partner institutions completely closed their doors to the public. And we had 1.2 million visitors. So those folks were mostly coming to the public areas of the park. Yes, we anecdotally saw a huge jump in park visitorship. And then we got our first year of numbers, and it was so much vastly more visitors than we had anticipated. We've struggled to keep up with that. I mean, we're having to kind of calibrate our business operation a little bit to keep up with the people that are coming through, the feet, the restroom use, the litter. It's just been an explosion of everything. But, I think that's just that many more people who are grateful that it exists and motivated to conserve it. So we also had one of our best years financially. So people were tuning in that it was a place that they benefited from and needed to support.
I'm curious about, just since the Ornamental Meadow Museum is moving into the College of Art, do they sign a lease with you, or is it a three-way lease, or how does that work so that you're protecting the park from the lessee?
So they signed a lease with the city. So the College of Art owned the college and they owned the building, but the city owned the land. And that came about, originally the city owned the building too, but at some point in recent history, the city signed a quit claim deed to the building over to the college. I think that was so they could get some specific financial help. When the college closed, the building reverted back to city ownership. So now the city owns the land and the building and has signed a long-term lease with the Metal Museum, which is similar to the arrangement with the Brooks Museum, I believe. It's also, well, a lot of us, the zoo, the Shell, the Conservancy, and the Brooks all have management agreements, which essentially reads as if we are a contractor of the city of Memphis. The Metal Museums is different. It is an outright building lease.
How about talking about the Brooks Museum you mentioned just now? So when they leave, and I know that will not be till closer to 2026, they may.
I hear you.
They may leave kind of footprint permanently, maybe, but it sounds like they will still have aspects of art that they are leaving, or maybe rotating installations, or what are you guys kicking around? I know that probably planning for that is in the infancy, but I'd be interested to hear, since we have you here, tell us what you guys are thinking about.
Yeah, we haven't gotten very deep into that conversation yet because it's just an unknown around who will move into the building. It's been more of an acknowledgement that the park has such an art history and arts legacy that we need to maintain, and that the Brooks Museum is best positioned to help us do that. I don't think that it's going to involve any physical structures. I think it's going to be more around programming. Of the ideas that have been promoted or proposed for the Brooks Museum, for whoever follows the museum, almost all of them have incorporated some sort of gallery space. Could be gallery space for local artists, or it could be some specific type of art focus. Like I think one of the proposals was a Museum of African American Theater. So a specific type of art going into a gallery space there. it's been more casual conversations about how the Brooks might continue to support that through knowledge, through joint programming. Like, for example, the Day of the Dead Festival is hosted by the Brooks Museum every year in partnership with Casa Teatro. That may be a festival that stays in the park and is continued to be hosted by Brooks Museum, but not actually on the museum grounds. That's just one example that comes to mind for me. It's not something that we've actually discussed or settled on. So it's just the joint programming thing, effort that I could envision.
Thank you. That festival is a ton of fun. Good to see it in the park. To see it in the park. The festival, the Day of the Dead Festival. It's super fun. Everything she did. Can you not hear me?
I can't hear it all. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Can you hear? Are you hearing me now?
I can barely hear your voice.
That's weird.
It's less audible than it was earlier.
I don't know why that would be. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
No, I was just saying that the Day of the Dead Festival is really fun and that people should go. And I would love to continue seeing it in the park if possible.
Right.
Anything else? Our technology is not continuing to cooperate, so bring it to a close. So Tina, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. You're getting a
Thank you.
and continue to support it.
All right, I can't hear anything, so I'm just gonna sign off and say goodbye. Appreciate you guys.